Alright, there are three main ways to solve quadratics. Let me talk about those ways. So remember, a quadratic is in this form: ax squared plus bx plus c. It needs to be equal to 0, so if it's not, solve it for 0. That means rearrange it. So the first way is to factor and solve it. So if you're factoring it, then you take the first, the a, and the last, the c, and you multiply them together. And then you figure out the two numbers that multiply to that, but also add to your b, your 9. So on this one, it was 2 and 7. You use that to split your 9x into 2x and 7x. Then we call it factor by grouping, meaning you group the first two, take out the GCF, say what's left. Take the second two, pull out the GCF, say what's left, and you've got your two factors. From there, we use the zero product property, which means set each of those factors equal to 0 to see what would make this 0. And you solve it by subtracting 7 on this one and subtracting 2 on this one. So your answers are -7 and -2. Another way of doing it is to graph it. So on your graphing calculator, you can go into your y equals, graph it, and look at the graph. So you would just plug this one in. Here's how it graphs, and your solutions are found at your x-intercepts. So these are your solutions. We also call them your roots. We also call them your zeros, and it's important to know that they are your x-intercepts. And then the last thing is called the quadratic formula. This one is given to you on your SOL formula sheet, so you do not have to memorize it. You pick out your A, B, and C. So in this one, your 1, your A was your ninja, your B is that 9, and your C is the 14. You plug them right into the right spots here and here. So watch, I took my B, my 9, and plugged it in here and here. I took my A and I plugged it in for the 4A and the 2A, so that's why there's a 1 here and 1 here. And then I took that C, that 14, and I plugged it in right there, right at the end. So when you do that, you're following PEMDAS. So you multiply this all together, get 56. Then you also square, so you want to make sure you do your exponent, so 81. You subtract those, get 25. Take the square root of those, get 5. And now we can handle the rest of it. So what this means down here is that we need to do two problems. It's like two paths. You can add and you can subtract. So you see what happens there. We say -9 plus 5 and -9 minus 5. That's what I've written down here. So add them, subtract them, divide by 2, and you get those answers. Try it out. We've got -9 plus 5, that's -4. Divide by 2 is -2. Then -9 minus 5 is -14. Divide by 2 is -7. So it's time for you to try one of these. So what we are going to do is we're going to go down here. We're going to factor this one problem 3 times, all 3 ways. So first thing we need to do is go here with our x. First times last, that's -12. That's 2 times -6. And it needs to add to a ninja 1 right there in the middle. So we are going to say what multiplies to the top but adds to the bottom. I'm thinking 3 and 4 as long as we play with our negatives. So -3 times 4 is -12. -3 plus 4 is +1. So then you take your 2x squared. You change your 1x into -3x plus 4x. And then we say that -6 there at the end. You can hold on to that equals 0 for a few seconds. And then let's go to factor by grouping. My 2x squared and my 3x have an x in common, and that's it. That gives me a 2x minus a 3 left over. Pull down my plus. These are both even numbers, so they are divisible by 2. And that's 2x minus 3 left over. So my two factors are 2x minus 3 and x plus 2. And those are both equal to 0. So let's think about what would make those 0. So this one's easy. That one's going to be a -2. So a -2 plugged in there will cancel out that +2 and make it 0. This one's a little more difficult, so let's go over and write a real quick equation. What would make that 0? Well, if we add 3 and we divide by 2. So 2x equals 3 and then divide by 2. So we get 3 halves. It's about 1.5. But we're going to leave it as 3 halves. Alright, let's talk about graphing now. So on your graphing calculator, get it ready, get it on, and hit your y equals key right here. So I have something already in there. I actually have the right thing on there already. But let me show you how you do that. So clear it out if something else is in there. You want to hit the 2, and then your x is always this variable key right here. And then you want to square it, so use this key right here. And then you want to say plus, and then you want to say x again. So we want to put in this variable key one more time. And then -6. Be very careful to make sure you said -6 here, not -6. A negative is going to throw that whole thing off. So once you hit y equals, you can hit graph. And we get a picture of the graph just like this. And if you can see it well enough, you can maybe already graph it. Like you might be able to pick out those zeros already. But if you can't see it well enough, we're going to have to go and actually get it to calculate the zeros for us. So here's what we do to do that. So you've got to hit your second, and you've got to hit your trace, which is the calc feature, and you're going to go to 0, which are your x-intercepts. So we're going to hit option number 2. And when you do that, it's going to ask you for left and right boundaries. So what you need to do, this graph is infinite. What you need to do is you need to frame it in. So if I want this 0 right here, I need to frame it in from here to here. So to do that, you've got to think of this imaginary vertical line right here. So imaginary vertical line, which would make this side over here the left side, and this side over here the right side. So it doesn't matter where on there you do, just a little above it's fine. You hit enter to make it say that's as left as I want you to check. You move it over to the right. You can also think you're using the right key to get there. You want it just below that 0, and you want to hit enter, so I want it to go that far. So basically we're framing it in from here to here over on this side, so from the left to the right. And then one more enter will make this actually tell you what the x-intercept is, and we get out a -2 right there. So I'm going to go over to my graphing. I'm going to do a quick graph of what it looks like. It's going down kind of like that, and this one was a -2. So x is equal to -2. But we see that it's hitting at another spot as well, right over here. So let's go figure out where that is. We already know because we solved it over here with factoring, but let's see what we get. So we're going to hit second, and then trace, which is our calc again. We're going to go to option 2. This is going to calculate the 0 for us. And this time I'm going to use my arrow to get that little cursor over to the left boundary by the 0 right here. So it's on the left side, because if there was an imaginary vertical line right here, this is the left side, this is the right side. So we hit enter to boundary that in, and then we move it over to the other side of my 0. So now I'm on the right side of that 0. Hit enter. One last time, we'll make it actually tell us what it is, and we get 1.5. So 1.5, that's the same as 3/2, so we got the exact same thing twice here. Alright, one other way that you could solve this same thing, so we know what the answer is already, but another way you could solve it is with your quadratic formula. So here it is again, it's -b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So we're going to pick out what a is, that's our 2. We're going to pick out b, which is a ninja 1. And we're going to pick out c, which is a -6. Alright, from there, let's go in and plug in. So x is equal to a -b, so that's -1. So if that was a negative number, it would cancel to a positive right here. Then plus or minus the square root of b squared, so 1 squared, minus 4 times my a, which is 2, times my c, which is -6, all over 2a, so 2 times my a2. So let's go ahead and simplify what I can. So -1 plus or minus. I know that 1 squared is 1. I know that 4 times 2 is 8. And 8 times -6 is a -48. So what I really have here is a minus a negative, so a plus a 48. So double negative here cancels. And then on the bottom I have 2 times 2, which is 4. Let's go a little bit further. 1 plus 48 is 49. And I know the square root of 49 is 7. So what I really have is -1 plus 7 divided by 4, and -1 minus 7 divided by 4. So just in case you lost that, I've got this -1. I'm splitting this plus minus into a plus and a minus in 2 separate places. I already know what this root is. That was the root of 49, which is 7. So I replaced that root with 7. And then I'm going to divide both of them by 4. So if you choose to do this in your calculator, you've got to be careful. And I know sometimes we do choose to do some easy math in our calc. So I just want you to be nice and easy. Make sure you say -1 plus 7, hit enter, and then divide by 2. Because if you forget that divide by 2, we're getting something a little weird out there. What's going on? Did I make a mistake way over here? Nope, should be a -2. Oh, I wasn't supposed to be dividing by 2. I was supposed to be dividing by 4. I apologize. Let's try that one more time. -1 plus 7 is 6, and then we need to divide by 4. My bad. This was the 1.5 one. But what I was about to say on the calculator, I got a little distracted there, is if you try to do this all in one step, look what happens. So 1 plus 7 divide by 4, it actually only divides that last thing by 4 right here instead of the whole thing by 4. So do it in 2 steps like I did. So clear that out. Let's try this next one. -1 minus 7. Hit enter and then divide by 4 if you're going to do this in your calculator, which is -2. So our 2 answers are -2, the one we just got out, and then the 1.5 from earlier that I messed up a little bit with. So that was a 4 on the bottom, not a 2 like I did originally. All right, all done.